Today we shall be talking about the 1973 movie The Exorcist. This movie is filled with demons, full of people getting possessed and evilness, and a whole lot more. So let's get into this. In my opinion, this movie is a solid horror movie as it takes you through what it is basically like to be possessed by a demon. For those who haven't, which I'm going to put my hand up right now and say I haven't, but you know, maybe in the future, you never know. But you know, this plot is quite simple as it basically goes through the fact that a girl called Reagan has been possessed by a ghost, or let's say a demon called Pazuzu, who is taking over her body. And nobody knows really what's happening. Not many people, doctors especially, are wondering what the fuck's going on with her. And then until they go up to a priest and then ask, why is my daughter, you know, fucking hanging off the ceiling? They're like, oh, she's possessed. Okay, that's basically the movie. And obviously they're gonna have to exorcise this demon out of Regan's body. And I said, Tegan, who the fuck is Tegan? But anyways, out of Regan's body, and that's what this movie is basically all about, with the two priests at the end exorcising the demon. However, at the point when Damien first sees Regan, who is then at that time possessed by Pazuzu, we sort of see what's going to unfold and how the exorcism's going to happen. And because at first he doesn't feel like he believes her, and when he's talking to her, I just felt watching it like, I'm not sure what's going on here, because this seems like it's coming from a comedic angle, even though this should be quite serious. And that's something that I knock this movie for being quite comedic in parts. Maybe it's just over time, like since this was made in the 70s, it might have been evil, and those words that were said, like she was saying the priest basically to go fuck off and everything like that, those sorts of words might have not been used as much. But that, to me, if you put that in a modern day horror movie, that's going to be funny, that's going to be not comedic, that's going to take the seriousness out of it. And that's what I felt this did in this particular movie. It took the seriousness right out of this movie. But yeah, back to the story then. Damien is basically one of the priests that's never really come across exorcism before, and obviously that's why they have to draft in another exorcist person in, basically to figure out what the fuck is going on and how we even go about exorcising this demon out of Regan's body. And that's where they go to Father Merrin, as he's called, and that's where the progression of the exorcism starts, because as soon as he flies over for Iraq, that's where the end battle between Pazuzu, Regan and the rest of them. It's a decent little battle at the end, I must admit. But before that point, before we get to the end battle, I want to go on about how this movie, like I mentioned at the beginning, movies drag and movies slow down. This one, before you get into the demon stuff and before anything really kicks off, it gets kind of boring. I feel that this movie drags on because you know what the inevitable is going to be, you know where it's going to lead to, but it feels like it's taking too long to get to that step or to keep it exciting. Whereas if you watch like modern day stuff, likes of Conjuring, they can't exorcise the house or, you know, get rid of the demons and stuff until a bit of excitement's happened and a bit of suspense and things like that. And normally that's what you see in modern day horror. However, in this particular one, it was like you'd get a bit and then it would be like nothing. You'd get a little bit and then nothing. Then you'd go into the big main thing where you got everything rather than just a little smidge of something. And that's why I think this movie, in my opinion, is probably not as good as people say it is, because it takes too long to get to where it's going, and it doesn't keep the suspense all the way through the movie. It is in the end battle, which we'll get onto in a second, but not scattered all the way through like modern day horror. So moving on then, onto the final battle. This is mouth-watering and juicy. This is like everything that the movie has just left till the end. It's like it showed you glimpses of what the possession based stuff is and how it is affecting Regan, but this takes it to the whole new level and sees the evilness and the spookiness and the absolute spiritual demony things happen at the end, and that's the stuff that I want to get into, because that's why I watched Exorcist, to find out, oh, all this shit happens and whatever. But it leaves it till the last half an hour, or last 20 minutes or so, in which was annoying, because you'd watch maybe an hour and odd and not seen all this brilliantness unfold. But when it does, honestly, mouth-watering, brilliant. As we see Merrin and Damien try to, reading from the Bible, reading Gospels and prophets and stuff, to try to get this demon out of Reagan. And this is this you think is going to be successful, but it isn't. And because the priests are getting played around by Pazuzu, because the demon knows what the fuck is happening, and when things happening, starts floating up in the air, and a lot of different things start happening, in which are just freaking the shit out of the priest. But it's like the priest keeps saying that we've got to keep going, we've got to keep going, we've got to keep going, because we've got to keep trying to exorcise this demon. And obviously the demon Pazuzu is just tormenting with the priest, which is amazing. And it isn't till they take a step out and then realise, actually, Merrin will just go in and see if Merrin, who is the experienced one who has had to deal with previous exorcisms before, he goes in, but then ends up being found dead on the floor, and the demon basically laughing in Damien's face, and then that is the spark that lights the rest of the exorcism then, as that's it. Damien tries to taunt the demon into jumping in his body, and then soon as the demon jumps into his body, that's it, he throws himself out the window and kills the demon for all. And that's basically how the movie ends, and Reagan is spirit and evilness free. But if I'm being honest, and I like to be honest, this movie in modern day horror wouldn't survive. If this movie was made now, with all the same graphics and stuff, of course times have changed, and they could use more CGI effects and make it more serious. But I think this movie doesn't stand the test of time, as the seriousness is taken out of it. Like I said, it seems a bit comical at times, and seems a bit like, what are you doing? This is meant to be scary, but you're not making it scary, you're making it funny, which is the opposite of what you should be trying to do. And I understand, at the time, people were being like, there were priests in cinemas and things when you came out, and give people prayers and stuff to say, to sort of calm them down as such after watching this movie. But at the end of the day, I, from watching it, don't get that sort of feel. And I know times have changed, but this movie just hasn't aged well in modern day, because the modern day stuff has probably prepped us more for watching the older stuff, as they're 10 times worse. As now we're seeing jump scares used to scare people instead, and we're seeing more godlike and disgusting monsters and villains and spirits and demons in modern day movies, and that's what gives it the scary edge. And also, I just want to say a big shout out to the cast before we wrap up. Jason Miller, Linda Blair, Ellen Burstyn was absolutely fantastic, and they all contribute massively. If any of those got replaced, this movie would fall to bits just like that, in my opinion. To summarise this movie will probably go down in history as one of the best horror movies ever made. However, that is not my argument for this movie. This, to me, is one of the most overrated and overhyped movies of the past few years and past few, decades and whatever of horror movies, and I think horror movies are now so much better. That's not to say this weren't a bad movie. I thought this was a solid horror movie, hence why I've rated this movie a 7.6 out of 10 and a world-class film. So let me know down in the comments down below whether you agree with what I've said or disagree with anything I've said, or let me know your opinions down in the comments down below, please. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to be alerted to all the new content this channel creates, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Later.